2018's God of War might be one of the most remarkable achievements in gaming history. The game managed to revitalize and recontextualize the franchise, which in many ways was seen as an icon of the past. A great example of early 2000s power fantasy action games, with all the baggage that comes with that. The new God of War repositions the series protagonist Kratos as a regretful man who has managed to find a new life in a faraway land, distanced from his past sins by time and geography. Surprisingly, this provided the fans with one of the most impactful game stories in recent memory, as Kratos is forced to re-examine his relationship with his son Atreus after the passing of his wife. With this in mind, the recently released God of War Ragnarok is in a bit of a tricky situation. The small, intimate story of the previous game has been told, and the sequel is able to expand its story into new horizons. Now that we are familiar with this new Kratos and his place in the expanded world, what is his next chapter going to be about? Where can Kratos and his son go from here? In this video essay, I will take a look at God of War Ragnarok and examine how it tells a story about how we can be shackled by both our past and future, and how we can break free from those shackles. But first, let's take a quick look at the series' plot so far to give us the proper context. Those already familiar with this, feel free to skip to this part in the video. The original God of War trilogy followed the journey of Kratos, a Spartan warrior who is tricked into murdering his own family by the God of War Ares. Enraged by this, Kratos murders Ares and takes his place as the God of War. However, Kratos is soon driven into conflict with the other Greek gods and proceeds to murder his way through the entire pantheon, slaughtering many innocents in the process. At the end of the series, the Greek realm is driven into a complete apocalypse by the death of its gods. Kratos, gravely wounded in his fight against his father Zeus, drops into the ocean, seemingly never to be heard from again. 2018's God of War picks up long after these events. Kratos has somehow found his way all the way to the Nordic lands, where he has built a new life with his wife Faye and his son Atreus. The game begins just after the death of Faye, who gave Kratos and Atreus the mission to scatter her ashes from the tallest peak of all 9 realms. This journey is complicated by a mysterious stranger, later revealed to be the god Baldur, who ends up pursuing the duo at the behest of Odin, the leader of the Nordic gods. During their adventures, Kratos and Atreus form many new bonds, most notably with the goddess of love and beauty, Freya, Baldur's mother. The game ends in a fight where Baldur, who has been cursed with a never-ending yet unfeeling life by Freya, tries to murder his mother out of spite. Kratos, haunted by his past family-killing ways, intervenes and kills Baldur. Freya does not take this kindly, as she would have gladly died in her son's stead, and vows to take revenge on Kratos and Atreus. With the death of Baldur, the first stage of the prophecy of Ragnarok has been fulfilled. The apocalypse is coming, and Kratos has drawn the ire of Odin directly on him. The beautiful moment of Kratos and Atreus spreading Faye's ashes is shadowed by the reveal of her hidden giant heritage and a prophecy which seems to predict the death of Kratos at the end of Ragnarok. As I mentioned before, Ragnarok starts off with the new Kratos pretty much completely established. We're still not sure how exactly he traveled to the Nordic lands, nor what happened to change him so drastically. Well, we do know that this was likely because of Faye, but how exactly she managed to do it is left ambiguous. In this regard, Ragnarok offers no further answers. I have to wonder if this is intentional or inevitable. Kratos' sins are so insurmountable that it would be hard to craft a believable redemption arc for him. Similarly, the 2018 Kratos is pretty much a completely different character from his original counterpart, so to portray that change would require immense effort and skill. It might be that the team simply decided to leave that up to the audience's imagination instead of spending time and resources on it. Similarly, they might have realized that any attempt to portray the old Kratos in a sympathetic light was doomed to be met with disbelief. As a result of this, the Ragnarok Kratos feels still very much trapped in his past. He's not really been allowed to properly process, converse with, or make up for his sins. He has become a better person for sure, no longer murdering people willy-nilly, and even willing to help those in need. But this is not enough to offset what he did by driving the entire Greece into destruction. So in Ragnarok, Kratos is forced to wrestle with the question of if he can really move forward or not. Though the end of the world hangs above his head, along with the countless deaths that come with it, Kratos mainly has two goals in mind. Firstly, to protect Atreus, and secondly, to avoid slipping back into his warmongering ways. He is more than willing to help and protect those close to him, but is not driven by the need to do good or protect the innocent like most video game protagonists. And I would argue that the second motivation bleeds into the first. Kratos keeps trying to push Atreus away from conflict because he has seen what war with gods can lead up to. The old Kratos would have been plenty happy to immediately eradicate his enemies in order to protect his family. I feel like this is presented almost as a character flaw. Kratos is so frightened of his own past that he becomes a reactive, almost a passive person who is afraid of what his actions might lead up to. It is not until the end of the game when Kratos finally decides to take the fight to Odin, and this is all for a good reason, of course. However, there are a few key moments that nudge Kratos away from his past and towards a new direction. One of these is the new weapon that you get, the spear called Dapnir. Now, in the previous game, Kratos was also given an additional weapon, his old Blades of Chaos. This moment was framed as a necessary evil in order to save Atreus from the icy depths of Helheim. Kratos had hidden the blades under his house, out of mind and out of sight, like he was ashamed of them. His journey to retrieve the blades is also contextualized as him having to relive his past sins, as he is taunted by visions of the goddess Athena, whom he had killed. As Athena says, "You will always be a monster," Kratos replies, "I know, but I am your monster no longer." In contrast, the forging of the spear is framed as a wholly triumphant moment. Its golden color gives it a noble aura in contrast to the burning red hatred represented by the Blades of Chaos. Yet the spear is also a reminder of Kratos' past. It is the first weapon type that Spartans train with. I think this is a very important moment where Kratos is able to dwell back into his past, take what's good in it and bring it back to help him in the present, without the extra baggage. Instead of reverting Kratos back to the destructive god of war he was before, the spear is a step towards something new, and it is only possible thanks to the relationship Kratos has formed with the dwarven blacksmiths Sindri and Brok, something he would never have been able to do in his past life. Another important moment comes during the siege of Asgard. Atreus, dismayed by the innocent lives that Odin is using as human shields, tries to follow Kratos' teachings and close his heart to the suffering around him. Kratos has, up to this point, been trying to control Atreus by molding him into something predictable, a mirror image of himself. But in this moment, Kratos realizes that he must allow Atreus to be his own person, even if that means that he relinquishes his ability to protect him.
Son, listen closely. You feel their pain because that is who you are. And you must never sacrifice that. Never. Not for anyone. I was wrong, Atreus. I was wrong. Open your heart. Open your heart to their suffering. That is your mother's wish. And mine as well.
I will go deeper into Atreus' character during the next part, but suffice to say that this is what the relationship between the two has been leading up to. Kratos is finally able to put his past trauma, as self-inflicted as it is, aside, and let Atreus step into whatever uncertain and unpredictable future awaits him. As for Kratos himself, his character arc comes to a close at the last minutes of the plot. Here, Kratos finds yet another prophecy, this time predicting his own life. It turns out that for whatever reason, Kratos has been able to avoid his death, either by overcoming his predictable nature or simply misinterpreting the prophecy in the first place. And at the very last panel, he sees something unexpected. A new chapter in his life, a bright future where he is revered and worshipped by the people around him. It was already previously pointed out by Odin that despite being a god, Kratos hasn't really been properly worshipped.
What do you even know of godhood? In your lifetimes, has anyone ever worshipped you? Ever prayed to you? Can you even imagine that kind of love? No! You don't care about mortals. You don't care about anything beyond yourself, beyond the monster who kills without cause. You fear what you can never even hope to understand.
But whereas from Odin's mouth this can be read as a sign of arrogance, in Kratos' case it's something different entirely. I don't think Kratos cares much about being worshipped per se. What matters to him is the fact that he is able to do something so good that it warrants worship. For the first time ever, he sees in front of himself a path to making up for his blood-soaked past. The story of Ragnarok is very much about prophecies and fate, which the characters interpret in their own ways, and I will talk more about that in due time. But I think it is interesting that though a predestined fate is often presented as a cage or a restriction, in Kratos' case it becomes a source of great comfort and joy. He has been living in the past and the immediate present for so long that he couldn't really see a future for himself anymore. Yet with this revelation that there is indeed a path forward for him, he becomes truly free for the first time in centuries. And because of Kratos' view on prophecies, he does not believe that this future is simply handed to him, but that he will earn it with his own actions and choices. This was something that was influenced by Kratos' encounter with the Norns, the fates of the Nordic world.
You come to us, piteous archetypes, seeking freedom from your scripts, as if knowing your lines would grant you the power to rewrite them.
Speak plain.
You will die, Kratos of Sparta.
But you called him the destroyer of fate. There must be a way to subvert destiny.
There is no destiny, Puck.
The protagonists are speechless. They do not understand.
There is no grand design, no script. Only the choices you make. That your choices are so predictable merely make us seem prescient.
When my son was born, shut up!
This might sound gloomy, but Kratos clearly managed to find comfort in it. And I think that's because he sees his actions defining his nature, instead of his nature defining his actions. Or to put it another way, because the future Kratos is able to do good things, that means his nature, his essence, will also be elevated into what could be called a good person. Ragnarok really is just the first step in what will likely be a long, long path towards Kratos' redemption. In contrast to his father, Atreus' journey in Ragnarok is about struggling with his future. Unlike Kratos, who is painfully aware of his past, Atreus does not understand his own heritage. More specifically, Atreus doesn't understand the giant heritage that his mother hid from him, nor what it means for his purpose in life. This desire to find the right thing to do is what ultimately drives him to Odin, in the hopes that he would have the right answers. But Odin of course has his own motives, ones which I will also delve deeper into later. For the latter half of the game then, Atreus is constantly troubled by the fact that no matter what he and his father do, all roads seem to lead to Ragnarok. One after another, the duo makes their prophecies come true. We witness the birth of the world serpent, Fenrir, and the death of Heimdall. This is of course doubly troubling due to the prophesied death of Kratos, and avoiding that really seems to be Atreus' main motivation once he learns about it together with his giant heritage. Eventually, the two have a conversation about this issue, and it is clear that whereas Atreus views the future with uncertainty and fear, Kratos' world is firmly rooted in the present and the past that has defined it. Thus, he is able to guide Atreus to do the right thing and be true to himself, instead of trying to outsmart fate.
But what if, by doing all this, what if we're walking straight into Ragnarok? Is there any way to avoid fate? Your fate? What if we can't stop you from...
Would you turn your back on the wolves? On this realm? Remember our agreement.
If I do this...
Fate only binds you if you let it. Do what is necessary. Not because it is written.
And to go off in a bit of a tangent here, I find this advice to be awfully poignant. Of course we should do our best to secure the best future possible, but if all we do is prepare for things that haven't even happened yet, or might never happen, we risk becoming empty and hollow. If we stop nurturing our essence, our sense of self, we might eventually find ourselves having become someone who we don't even recognize. The culmination of Atreus' arc is twofold. Firstly, he rejects Odin's offer of ultimate all-encompassing knowledge, which, once more, I will go into more detail later. By doing this, Atreus embraces the idea of the unknown future. Thanks to his father's counsel, he can now draw security from knowing that as long as he stays true to himself, he's on the right path. Secondly, the game ends with Atreus embarking on his own journey with the giant Angbora as the two begin their mission to find the remaining giants who have been scattered across the world. This reinforces the idea of Atreus embracing the unknown future in contrast to his father. He is leaving Kratos behind, though not completely.
Loki will go. Atreus. Atreus remains.
Now, as I mentioned before, many other characters also face a struggle with either their past or future, and in that they act either as echoes or mirrors of Kratos and Atreus. The most prominent example of this is Freya. Though she begins the game as an enemy, blaming justifiably Kratos and Atreus for her son's murder, throughout the game she becomes an ally. This happens a bit too quickly for my taste, but I can't deny how fantastic of a companion character she becomes. She is every bit as experienced and life-beaten as Kratos, and as the two work through their differences, they're able to have some truly heartfelt conversations. Most notably, Kratos apologizes for murdering Baldur and admits that the choice was not his to make.
I do not regret saving your life, and never will. But the choice between life and death should have been yours to make. I should not have robbed you of that choice.
Personally, I never found Kratos' act entirely justified. It is easy to look at the situation from a distance and say that obviously the person trying to murder another should die, but Freya was ready to die if it meant that her son could keep living. What parent couldn't understand that notion? So I think Kratos' choice to kill Baldur had less to do with protecting Freya and more about not being able to relive his own trauma. After all, patricide is something Kratos is very familiar with, and the cycle of sons killing their fathers is what motivated Zeus to move against Kratos in the first place, which in turn led to Kratos killing him and the rest of Greece. It feels to me that facing the same situation again and watching a son kill his mother was something that Kratos instinctually could not let happen. It registered as so wrong, so traumatic to him, that he was willing to ignore Freya's wishes. He was more motivated by his own past than what was happening right in front of him. and Kratos admitting to his mistake in Ragnarok reads as a moment of healing, acknowledging to himself that he has to try and move away from his past. Similarly, Freya is able to put her anger aside in order to focus on the present issue, that being her ex-husband Odin. Another great moment of parallel character growth happens during Freya's personal side quest. After visiting her old wedding site and destroying the wedding gifts that bind her to Odin, Asgard, and all the painful memories that come with them, Freya is unable to destroy one last gift, the sword gifted to him by Odin himself. She realizes that there was too much good in her time in Asgard for her to sever that connection, so instead she decides to carry those memories with her and use whatever good they contain.
Asgard holds a part of me I can't sever. My bond to my son. To the Valkyries. That damn realm isn't just Odin's. It belongs to me too. The pain he caused is his. I refuse to keep holding on to it. This sword no longer holds our legacy. But it will serve as mine.
A much more fitting use for it.
This is mirrored in Kratos' own journey in how he acquires the Draupnir spear, a reminder of his past as a Spartan warrior. Just like Freya, Kratos is able to reach back into his painful past and pull out what is good, what is useful, in order to move forward and preserve what's important to him. Shifting our focus to the villains, Thor and Odin provide an interesting pair to talk about. On one hand, they can be seen as a twisted version of Kratos and Atreus, an abusive father-son relationship instead of a loving one. But then on the other hand, the internal philosophy of each character is reversed. Odin is trapped by his future and Thor by his past, so the father becomes a counterpoint to Atreus and the son to Kratos. But let's look at Thor first, as he is the simpler of the two. Thor can be seen as a dark reflection of Kratos. Both have a violent, dark past, yet whereas Kratos was able to avoid being consumed by his mistakes, Thor was not. He is a drunken, depressed mess who believes that he is unable to change, largely thanks to his father's enforcement. This is of course compounded by the fact that as soon as Thor starts to break out of the violent, painful mold that Odin has built for him, his father deems him broken and puts him down like a sick animal. Notably, it is Kratos' and Thor's shared belief and love for their children, Atreus and Trude, that motivates them to put aside their differences and be better. And Kratos is only able to point this out due to the friendship between the two children. There is this idea that even though the fathers might not be able to redeem themselves, the good that they put into the world through their kids might at least be a step towards that.
Don't you know what I've done? Yes! But what will you do now? We don't change. Or destroy us. No more. No more. For the sake of our children, we must be better.
They are not doing this for themselves, before they are already beyond redemption. And I do think that prior to seeing the hopeful ending to his prophecy, Kratos thought Atreus as the only way to at least partially make up for his past sins. Which brings us finally to Odin. Expanding from how he treats Thor, we can say that Odin views people as beings of function in a very deterministic way. Once Thor would no longer perform his purpose as a pure killing machine, Odin disposed of him, even though for Thor this was not a moment of failure, but of triumph. Similarly, we can point to how Odin sees races like the dwarves as mere factories for his machines and industry. This point of view extends even to Odin himself. He is revealed to be obsessed with his future or lack thereof. As a god, he does not know where he will go after death like mortals do. He has no one to look up to for guidance, no grand script to follow, no sense of purpose. Odin believes that the answers to these questions lie within a mysterious rift underneath his house and aims to use Atreus in order to gain access to its secrets. But ultimately, Atreus rejects the chance to glance inside the rift. Atreus clearly has no issues with not knowing what his future holds. We have already established that he actually draws joy and comfort from stepping into the unknown. Odin then acts as a dark reflection of this. Someone who cannot find meaning in life without knowing his ultimate goal and purpose. I want to take this final stretch of the video to make a detour, mostly for my own amusement, and speculate a bit about what exactly Odin's rift is supposed to be. My theory is that it is connected to the goddess Athena and the higher plane of godhood that she ascended to in the original series. I am mostly basing this off the color of the rift and the mask that is connected to it, a bright neon green, the very same color that was Athena's primary motif in the original series. Now, granted, in her brief cameo in 2018's God of War, Athena was presented mainly in grey and blue colors, but this might just be an artistic choice to make her fit the scene and the new art style. More importantly, the bright green color does make an appearance, most notably once Kratos walks through Athena and her body disintegrates. This connection also makes the most sense in terms of the story. If we believe that the rift holds the answers to Odin's questions about the purpose of godhood, it would make sense that it would be inhabited by whatever beings stand above gods. It has already been pointed out that Thor also disintegrates into colorful particles upon death, much like Athena did in the original trilogy, and unlike other Nordic gods that die in Ragnarok. So it might be that he too ascends into a higher plane of existence, which would be deliciously ironic since that happens immediately after Odin deems him a failure. The big difference here is that as Thor disintegrates, the primary color used is blue, not green, but it might be that whatever color used is supposed to represent the character themselves, not the higher plane of existence, and blue does fit Thor's lightning motif perfectly. So the green color used with the rift and the mask might just be a way to connect them with Athena, the only character at that point in the story that had ascended beyond godhood. Stories about prophecies can often be tricky. If you follow the prophecy, it feels predictable, but if you don't, well, that's also predictable. You essentially diminish the infinite possibility horizon of your story into two options. But God of War Ragnarok manages to avoid this pitfall by focusing on how the characters' relationship with their past and future shaped them, and what they must do in order to overcome their shortcomings. And of course, in addition to that, we get a fantastic reimagining of Norse gods and myths that is truly epic in scope. Actually, thinking back at the game, it makes me a bit sad that there aren't any major games with Finnish gods in them. Oh wait, there is.
They're lying to us. We're lying to ourselves. The room's not the world. The world is much bigger.
Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to see more videos like this, you can show your support by subscribing, liking and sharing the video. That way I will know that I should keep making more. Thanks again for watching.